The Rutgers University Jazz Ensemble, directed by Conrad Herwig, will honor the legacy of Professor William Fielder in their annual Prof. Fielder Memorial Concert, featuring guest artist and alum Terell Stafford, who joins us on the WBGO Journal. Great to see you, Terell.
Great to see you as well. Thank you.
I know this is a special event for you, not only because you are the guest artist, but you have a special connection with Prof. And first of all, tell us why everybody called him Prof.
Well, I think, with some professors, you could call the professor by their first name and say, hey, Professor, Ridley, or maybe such and such. But Professor Fielder, for some reason, everyone just calls him Prof. And that's what everyone in the world knows him by. More by Prof than Professor Fielder. So I think it's just a short term for Professor Fielder.
And your connection goes back to Wynton Marsalis's suggestion to you to work with him, right?
Yeah, I'd met Wynton. I had quit playing trumpet because after I finished my undergraduate degree, and after I stopped playing trumpet, I became a computer programmer and I tutored in trigonometry. And some friends of mine got me to go out and hear Wynton Marsalis. He was performing with the Eastman Wind Ensemble in Washington, D.C. at the Kennedy Center. And I went and I heard that group, and two things struck me. A, the principal trumpet of the Wind Ensemble, her name was Yvonne Tall, just had a really beautiful, gorgeous sound. And then Wynton came out and he just knocked it out of the park. So I went backstage. I actually wanted to meet both and just let them both know how encouraged I was. But the Wind Ensemble had left and there was a huge line to meet Wynton, and I waited in the line, and that's how it all happened. He asked me, he goes, hey, he shook my hand. He goes, hey man, you play trumpet? I said, kind of. He goes, what does kind of mean? I said, well, I used to, but I don't anymore. And he goes, why not? I said, well, because I play off to the side. And he goes, man, you should go talk to Prof. It doesn't matter where you play. I'll hook you up with him. I'll treat you to a lesson. Just be serious. So he hooked it up, and I went up and I met Prof. And my whole life changed from the first day I saw him.
So we can thank not only Prof, but we can thank Wynton Marsalis for getting you back on the trumpet, because now you're this Grammy Award-winning and acclaimed trumpeter that the world has come to enjoy and love. So when you think back at that time where, I don't think I'm going to play trumpet anymore, to what you've accomplished now, and think about Prof's connection with that, it must be really kind of just earth-shattering.
Yeah, it's very overwhelming. When I came to Prof, I'll never forget what he said to me when he saw me play. He heard me play and he sat there for a minute and he said, he goes, son, do you love the trumpet? And I said, yes, sir, I love the trumpet. And he goes, well, you got some things to work on, but I think we can work it out. And I said, well, what about my embouchure? He goes, what about your embouchure? And he goes, as long as you put air through the horn, it doesn't matter where you put the mouthpiece. And I thought that was like a classic line, like, yes, like, wow, like, man. So, from my first lesson with him, coming up from DC, he was just something else. I mean, he was a source of knowledge, and he had a particular way of teaching, which evolved as you get to know him, you know what I mean? And he gets more comfortable with you. But he's an encyclopedia of wisdom when it comes to trumpet literature, and and pedagogy. He's a master.
It was back in 1979 that he accepted that position at Rutgers University, after having a long career, not only as a trumpeter himself and a musician, but in education as well. And then eventually lands at Rutgers, and that's where he spends the rest of his time. Thank goodness for that. So many wonderful performers like yourself have come through his tutelage. When you think about, you mentioned a little bit why he was special, but also the fact that he played, at a high level, the trumpet, and what you specialize in had to be an advantage when it comes to the education side as well.
Absolutely. Back in the day, people would say, well, if you can't play, teach, and if you can't teach, play. and people like Prof broke that mold, because the reason he taught so well is because he played so well, and he'd figured out how to do so much on the trumpet, sometimes with guidance, from like like his mentor and teacher, Bud Herseth, who was principal of Chicago Symphony, and Vincent Chikowitz. He came from that school of playing and played in the Chicago Civic Orchestra. So he had that type of training. But, when Prof would talk about sound with you, he could pick up the horn, and the sound he would get from the horn would explain everything, the depth of sound that he had on the trumpet. And the thing that's amazing is that from when I met Prof in 1988 to when, I graduated, and even beyond graduating, I would still get lessons from him and coaching from him. And with him losing teeth and getting, false teeth or implants, through all that, he was still able to play the trumpet through his principles and fundamentals. He was living testament of, like, if you work on these fundamentals, they will follow you the rest of your life. And he was a living testament to that.
Speaking of legacy, you've continued his legacy of being a great player and an educator. You're the director of jazz studies and the chair of instrumental studies at Temple University, founder and band leader, of course, of the Terell Stafford Quintet, managing and artistic director of the Jazz Orchestra of Philadelphia. So you've learned so much from him. You've carried not only the playing, but the educational side. You're giving back now as well.
Yeah, and that's something we would talk about in our lessons. When he would explain a concept to me, he would explain why it works, why it doesn't work, how he came about to find it, and how it works for him. And then he would ask me, if it doesn't work for you, tell me why it doesn't work, and we'll figure out a way to make it work. So to me, that's like, just that in itself is like the fundamentals of being an educator. I walk into my trumpet lessons and I hear a student, and I can't teach one student like I teach another. Everybody has different needs. And every time I teach them, I swear, I've been at Temple 26 years, I always refer back to Prof. Always refer, there's so much. And just the other day, I was looking through his syllabus. He told me when I was going to go into teaching, he goes, here's my syllabus, do what you may with it, and I said, wow, Prof, that's really kind. And then he told me, he goes, if you want to succeed in education, you need to do this, 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 and this. He gave me like 5 pointers. I wrote them down. I followed them like he said. And, at the now I'm an endowed chair, everything is accredited to Prof, even for me to get promotion and to be, tenured, it's all Prof. He prepared everything for me.
Can you give us at least 2 of those?
Sure. So
5?
one of the things is that as soon as I got the position from day one, he says, every activity you do, find a box and put a program in that box. And I was like, why? He goes, just do it, So everything I did, every recital I would do, every concert I would do, everything I would do, I would put in the box. And then he said, if you have any questions about anything when it comes to teaching, don't figure it out on your own. Find a source. So when I remember I said, I was going to be, when I started at Temple, there's a lot of classes I hadn't taught. And so Prof was like, why don't you reach out to people that you admire in the field and get their opinion as well as mine? So when I started Temple, of course, I got my directions from Prof, but I called Jimmy Heath and I spoke to him. I called David Baker and I spoke to him. And then I came back to Prof and said, here's the information they gave me about how I can teach these classes. And that was his thing. As you continue, if you have a question and you don't know it, reach out to someone else. And so that's helped me like beyond belief. If I'm in a situation with a trumpet student, now, I can reach out to John Faddis, or I can reach out, to Winton, or I can reach out to someone and ask the question, hey, I have a situation here that I'm dumbfounded on. Can you help me? Instead of, making something up and, because of my insecurity, it does better for me. So those are just 2 things. Find a resource. Don't be ashamed to call out and get help, and then save every drop of literature you can when it comes to concerts and recitals. And the way the 2 things have played out is, one, by me calling all these people, the people are like, wow, Terrell's really serious about teaching. And people continue to send me materials and resources that they come up with, that they find. So I just put it in my file and I thank them for it. And then, by me saving my programs and all that, when I went up for tenure, I got a note from the president. And the note from the president of Temple University said, "Bravo, sir. This is an outstanding tenure package. If more faculty had been conscious of saving every program and organizing it in a way to present as you did, the tenure process would be easy." And I called Prof. I said, "Prof, like it's amazing, like he had it figured out."
Great advice from
Yeah.
a great individual. Now, if you want to know all about the Temple connections, you can check out Nicole Sweeney's interview that she did earlier this year with Terrell. So make sure you check that out for more information about his Philadelphia connections and how that has all worked out. Now, the Rutgers Jazz Ensemble, when you're a guest artist and you're working with students and you're working with putting together a program, how does that work?
Well, I've known Conrad for years, and he told me, he goes, Terrell, I want you to do the Prof Memorial Concert, which was an honor to me. I haven't played at Rutgers since I graduated, and I graduated with a classical degree. I didn't graduate with a jazz degree, so I never. What's interesting in honor, I never got to play in any jazz groups at Rutgers University. I got to play in the classical groups, but never a jazz group. So I thought about Conrad, I thought about Prof, um, and I thought about the students, what'll be fun to play. He said, send me about 5 songs. So I picked a Michael Brecker song, African Skies, mainly because, there's a McCoy Tyner connection. McCoy played on that, there's Philly connection. And then there's another song we're going to do that I wrote called Bounced. And I wrote that at the time that I'd graduated from Rutgers and things in my life and career were picking up, and I was still hanging out with Prof, and so this was one of the songs I'd written during that period. And another song is "Hey, It's Me You're Talking To," and it's a Victor Lewis composition. And I know Victor Lewis teaches at Temple. Um, Another song I'm going to do is called "Blame It on My Youth." And I think we're going to do it. I sent these arrangements, so I'm just, and "Blame It on My Youth" was a song that I didn't know. And I was out on the road with Kenny Barron. And during this tour, Kenny Barron was kind of choosing ballads for people to play. And so he chooses a ballad, for David Sanchez was the sax. Chooses a ballad for David, and the whole time on this tour, I'm thinking like, man, I hope I'm doing a good job. I really wanted, Professor Barron, I really want to do well for him, and he didn't give me a ballad to play. So I said, oh man, I'm gonna get fired. He didn't give me a ballad. This is gonna be my last week. So then Kenny says, hey, I want you to learn this ballad, and I said, okay. So he teaches me this ballad. And then I said, what's the name of it? He goes, it's called "Blame It on My Youth." And I leave the rehearsal. I'm like, oh, he's going to fire me. Blame it on my youth. This is just a way for me to, dang, But then I started to play this song with him. And I love playing it. And Bill Cunliffe had done an arrangement. So that was another song that I sent. And then 2 other songs that I sent, both with Thad connections. One is called "It Happened to Me." And at Temple, we did a tribute to Thad Jones, and "It Happened to Me" was one of the features that I played on. And then the other is a song called "Terell Song," and it was written by John Clayton. And John Clayton I think, as far as an educator, he's probably one of the best educators I've ever seen. Great mentor, great musician, composer, and arranger. And I played with the Clayton brothers, his group, the Clayton brothers, for 20 plus years. And, we lost Jeff. And, that was a really special time in my life to play with the Clayton brothers and to be around Jeff Clayton. And he taught me a lot of things about life and about pedagogy. One of the things that I heard him say to people, which I find fascinating, a student said, I want to sound, I want to, find an original sound, I want to find my own sound. And Jeff Clayton said to the student, it's better to sound like someone than no one.
Mm.
I found that to be really profound, So that's the program that I sent. That's probably more charts than he needs. But every chart that I picked has a certain sentiment to me.
Yeah, a lot of thought went into that, and the audience is going to appreciate that for sure. October 27th, 7:30 at the New Brunswick Performing Arts Center. As far as the Rutgers program, you have a master's of music from Rutgers back in 1993. But when you think about the Mason Gross School Performing Arts there, and Conrad, what he's done, amazing work being done in the jazz field at Rutgers University.
It's amazing, and there's a legacy, with great teachers at Rutgers. But I'll never forget this moment. I think it was 2 years ago, maybe more. But my quintet was playing at the New Brunswick Jazz Festival. We were the headliner, I think, for Saturday evening, and I got there early because I hadn't been in New Brunswick for a really long time, and I got there early, and there was a group that was playing, not on the stage. They were playing like a little square. And I was listening to these kids. I didn't know they were kids. I was listening and I was like, wow, these folks can really, really play. And I really, really dug it. And then after that group played, another group got up and played, and they were killing. So I went up to them and I said, man, where are you guys based? Are you from DC? Did you come up for the festival? And I'm like, no, we're students at Rutgers. I said, wow, man, you guys sound amazing. Like the tune selection, the level of improvisation, they're having fun. The solos were soulful. It wasn't any kind of academic kind of sounding stuff. It was just from the heart. And I mean, I was like, man, my hat goes off. Like, bravo, like, man. And then recently I played a concert in Pennsylvania, and Conrad came out. And I said, man, I don't know if I ever told you this, but man, your students were on fire at that New Brunswick. And he was like, yeah, the students are doing great. And there's a lot of opportunities for them in New Brunswick. They can a few places for them to play, a weekly jam. And I think, that's great. One thing that Wynton told me years ago is like, make sure you cultivate a community. And if you cultivate a community, you'll provide opportunities for your faculty, for your staff, for your students. And that's what I see what Conrad's doing. Not only is he teaching the students at a very high level, but he's cultivating a community within New Brunswick and providing opportunities for the students to get out and prepare for a great future in this music.
I've had the pleasure of speaking with some of Conrad's students, and yeah, they're deep and they're so into the music, which is wonderful. And your students are too. So I'd like to wrap up this interview by getting what has been the most interesting or touching or impactful comment you've received from a student recently that has just made you say, yeah, you know what? I'm doing the right thing here. Prof has made a difference in my life, and I'm making a difference in others.
Well, most recently, Derek Hodge, who's a great bass player, graduated from Temple. I can't even remember what year, but he did a master class last year. And before his master class, he said, I just want to say thank you to Terell for always believing in me, always respecting me, always answering any question that I have. And if he can't, he'll find an answer, but always being there and being a friend and being honest. And, that meant a lot to me. And he said it in front of, 125 students that were there for a master class. And when he said that to me, I said to Prof, I remember, I'll never forget this. I said to Prof, I said, Prof, how do you measure yourself as an educator? In a way, it's a very thankless job, And he says, Terell, when a student thanks you for who you are and compliments your character, that's how you've impacted a student. So, Derek Hodge really touched me when he said that to me last year. And he played in my band, for years, and we got, really close. And he's a special person, and he's, those words meant a lot to me.
That's wonderful. You can check out Gary Walker's New Day, New Play, because back in August, at the end of August, he played the music from Terell Stafford's latest album. So you can check that out as well. Congratulations on that. And the Rutgers Jazz Ensemble Prof Fielder Memorial Concert is taking place Friday, October 27th at 7:30 at the New Brunswick Performing Arts Center. And it is in honor of the legacy of Professor William Fielder in their annual memorial concert. And the guest artist has been our guest today, the incredible Terell Stafford. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Doug. I appreciate you.